In this movie, we'll go ahead and look at ways to use cycling animation with some of the built-in functions of Anime Studio Pro, specifically switch layers. Let's go ahead and create a new scene. If you have access to the working files, you can go ahead and choose Image and navigate to the working files for Chapter 7 and choose rocket2mba.png, a PNG file. Now you may wonder why I import so much art when you can do some excellent drawing inside of Anime Studio Pro. One of the reasons is for very complex types of art drawings like this, functions of programs like Adobe Illustrator work much better actually at creating things like this quickly. In fact, if I tried to import this file directly out of Illustrator, the program Anime would tell me that there's too many curves in it, and it's just because of the level of detail that I want. So I just output it to a PNG file, bring it in, and then you could go ahead and draw and create other things. And in fact, one of our projects will be doing quite a little bit of drawing inside the program. Well, what I want to do is use switch layers to create thrust for our rocket ship right here. So I need to import the thrust, and this too I happen to draw inside of Illustrator. So let's come down to Import, Vector, and I won't use SVG files or the typical image files because I like the look of the drawn vector graphics. So Adobe Illustrator file, and we've got flame 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let me go ahead and bring in 1. Then we'll repeat this process and bring in all the others real quickly in sequential order. Click and bring in, looking for number 3. Double click on that, and finally come down and get the 4th one, which will make up the entire set we'll be using with the switch layers. All right, they're all in there. Now they're different sizes and different scales. So I want to get them all lined up first. So this flame 4, I'm going to go ahead and click on the layer and bring it down. We're at time frame 0, so we're not changing any of the keyframe to data at all. And get these all to kind of line up. Let me come back and grab this 4th one. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and create a new switch layer. That's highlighted, and I'll call this one Thrust. I'll shift click all the flames, drag them into that switch layer right there. And now with the switch layer highlighted, I can go ahead and scale everything in the scene. I didn't want to do that individually for the actual items themselves. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this smaller. I'm going to drag it down. Well, how about not spin it? Let's go ahead and click and drag down to where the exhaust is a little bit. Still needs to be smaller. Let me pull this in. Now currently it's in front of the rocket, so we're going to actually want to drag the entire switch layer behind or underneath the rocket. And then I want to contain both the rocket and the thrust in its own layer so I can animate that separately. So we'll create a new group, and I'll call this one Rocket Total. Drag it to the top here, and then go ahead and grab these two items and pull it inside this. What this allows me to do is that I can grab the rocket total layer and move the rocket and the thrust simultaneously so they always stick together. And that's great. The next thing I want to do is to go ahead and create the thrust cycling animation that we can use. So with that done, I'm going to come to Rocket Total, open our Actions window right here, and choose New, and I'll call this one Thrust. Our timeline changes color. We know we are now in this action mode. I will come down to the thrust switch layer right here, choose my thrust tool over here in the upper left-hand side, and I will go ahead and just choose flame 1, and it automatically sets a keyframe down here. Now, so it doesn't become spastically fast when we're doing this, and we're running at 24 frames a second, which is pretty quick. What I'll do is advance 2 clicks on the step, and I'm going to switch to, let's go flame 3. Now that looks like it's still maybe a little bit too large. There's a little fine tuning we can do here, but I'm going to demonstrate first and foremost the actual switch layer cycling animation. Click 2 more frames down, going to flame 2. Let's go ahead and click twice again, choose flame 4. And with that done, I will right click on this last keyframe, cycle. I'll accept the defaults so it goes back to frame 1, and our thrust has been activated now. I'll double click the main timeline. That goes away. We can still see the thrust, and we might not want that at the beginning. So what I will do is, with the switch layer activated right here, I'm going to step over 1 frame, double click thrust, turn off visible and choose OK. It's gone right now. We'll have the thrust kick in at 1 second into the animation. I'll double click that layer, turn visible, choose OK. And now what I'll do is at this point, I will select thrust, insert a reference to it. We can see we've got a cycling animation that shows up right in the timeline right there with this highlighted. Come back to the rocket itself. And if I play this, we'll see that we have the thrust going right now. Everything looks good. Let me come back to frame 1. On the top layer here, I can go ahead and just click once in our scene. I know that this is where I want the rocket to start moving. And then I'll say at frame 96, let's go ahead, actually let's come back to frame 48, 2 seconds into it, and I'll move the rocket up, shift click it just slowly so we get a little bit of motion going here. And then out at frame 120, let me go ahead and pull this up a little bit higher. Now, so we get a nice little bit of struggle with this rocket moving right here. I'm going to come back to this keyframe right here and choose an option that's just off the page. I can't show that to you, called Stagger, which will insert a little bit of, well, let's just take a look. With this back here, we go ahead and click play. Our rocket takes off, and now it's leaving. That's working with switch layers and cycling animation in Anime Studio Pro.